Tangible Sound, Arrival to a Higher Ground creates a celebratory experience of jazz art forms that connect, uplift, and transform our human spirit by translating the power of music into color and movement. Together, photographer Lauren Deutsch, filmmaker Jonathan Woods, and the Tangible Sound Collaborative created an immersive exhibition that celebrates Chicago's creative, improvised music community.
A lot of this exhibition is really honoring Chicago's history of improvised music.
The title of the show is Tangible Sound, Arrival to a Higher Ground. Arrival to a Higher Ground, part of the title is we really wanted people to be able to experience the sense of arriving to a higher level of consciousness, because this music has an ability to reach you, to heal you, to transcend you, to liberate you. What I wanted to do was to open the door to help people understand that jazz, which often gets this sort of rap that it's too intellectual, you have to study it to understand it, is not at all the case. That it is really about letting go of having to think about anything and just opening up your heart and your mind to be able to feel the music.
A couple of things make the music that we are covering really unique. It is improvisational. It takes a lot of study to play this music. And it also really takes being very, very open and listening very intently. Say if you're playing in a club or someplace, you can hear like a glass drop and create something, be inspired off of that. You obviously, with the musicians who you're playing with, you listen to them. It's a lot of being in the moment in a very special, unique, and intimate fashion.
I have a long relationship with this building, having grown up in the city, and so for me to be invited to do this show here was a beautiful continuum for me, and because it is now the People's Palace.
One of the major reasons why we really wanted to present Tangible Sound at the Culture Center, because beyond highlighting the importance of jazz in the city, it is really also the people that make it, beyond the musicians, the audiences, the photographers, the documentary, the venues. It really takes a city to make a scene and culture happen.
The manifestation of this exhibit is through the lens of Lauren Deutsch, who's been exploring this music visually.
I started out in my 20s doing photography. I was lucky to have been hired by the CETA Artist in Residence program back in the late 70s. Around the same time, had stumbled into the music. When I started out as a music photographer, I took pictures of people playing their instruments. And that was kind of a good way to learn things about being able to capture a particular emanation of energy from a musician. The music is collaborative. It is all about conversation and dialogue, and some of that dialogue actually happens when they're not playing their instruments. And so I began to hone in on that as a way to communicate the dynamics that's happening between and among the musicians. There were different ways that I could find to express finally the way the music feels. I began to experiment with moving my camera while I was shooting. And in those days, you didn't really get to see what you shot until whenever you got around to developing the film. At the same time, I had accidentally become the executive director of the Jazz Institute of Chicago. But eventually, I jumped into the digital world. I discovered that I had a tool that could allow me to express the music itself. I began to share some of the images with the musicians, and some of them would say to me, "This is what I see in my mind when I'm playing." And at that point I felt like, oh, okay, I think I'm really onto something here. I had this kind of amorphous idea that I wanted to create an environment where people could feel like they were able to step inside of the music. But I had never done anything like that before, and I knew that it would require finding people who knew how to do those sorts of things.
I'm a filmmaker, also have always been into surrealistic expressions.
I reached out to Jonathan and asked if he'd like to join me in this experiment, and he said yes.
When she came to me to animate and to bring even more life to something which already was very much alive, It was a real joy.
When Jonathan and I began collaborating, we came to this idea that we wanted to sort of keep the language of what we were doing musical.
Experimenting with the photographs, where we created something completely different that looked nothing like the original image. We put them together almost like they were sets that these musicians were performing.
In putting the exhibition together, we were both focused on creating a document of the history of this music in the city and celebrating the scene, the sense of community, and everything that we had been able to experience coming up within this musical sanctuary, really. With the idea of recreating the Velvet Lounge, it wasn't about creating a museum recreation, it was about recreating the ethos of a space. But what it also became was a way for many other members of the community to contribute to creating the space. There's a beautiful quilt that was created by a longtime patron of the Velvet Lounge, whose name is Linda Platt. And the beautiful bottles behind me and some other pieces in this space were created by Donna Joy Wolfe, who was the longtime bartender at the Velvet Lounge. Andy Pierce managed to save enormous amounts of ephemera before the Velvet Lounge was destroyed. The pieces that are representing what was behind the bar at the Velvet Lounge are actually the original pieces that were behind the bar at the Velvet Lounge. The photographs that are part of the slideshow that are behind me here are representative of both my work and 3 other photographers who have been documenting the Chicago music scene. In the Ancestral Forest, we are honoring 8 important ancestors who had everything to do with how the music evolved from the point when Louis Armstrong landed in Chicago to when Muhal Richard Abrams co-founded a collective of musicians who were creating and exploring new ways of making this kind of music.
One of the reasons why we wanted to honor Timuel Black and Fred Anderson, Fred created a marvelous playground for us in creating the Velvet Lounge. And then also, he mentored so many musicians.
The Velvet Lounge is a really important place. It was a tiny little dive bar on Indiana Avenue. It was a space created by Fred Anderson, who was a wonderful human being, an amazing musician. He opened up this space to be a space where people could work out and explore impossible ideas. He was a door opener in so many ways, not only in the way that he invited people into this tiny space to make music, but also he really helped young musicians be able to open up their minds to different ways of thinking.
Timuel Black, the reason why we selected him, Timuel lived a lot of what this music is about. He said that most things in American culture are very much so commoditized. With music, it is something which is deeply essential to us at an entirely different level. Sure, we need food, we need water, we need air, good air to breathe, but every single day, every individual on this planet, at some point in their day, they are interacting with sound. Timuel was tapped in to this essential aspect of living, and he celebrated it. It fueled him in every endeavor that he was involved with socially, politically, and communally.
I'd known Tim for a long time. He would often talk about what this music gave him. And it started really early on when his parents took him to hear Louis Armstrong play at the Regal Theater. He was like 8 years old, and it captivated him so much that he felt like he was transcending out of his body. At one point, he and his friends saved their money so that they could go hear Duke Ellington play at some theater on the north side of the city. They got there, and the ticket taker said, "No, I'm sorry, you guys can't come in," basically because they were African American. Duke Ellington somehow heard about what was happening at the front of the house, and he came out and he said, "Come on in, I will find you seats, Tim learned that it was really important to advocate for everybody to be able to experience this music, and it became kind of a theme along with many other experiences that he had about how do you create an environment for social justice, for equality, and for the right for everybody to have this experience of joy and reverence and liberation. He did a lot of political organizing, and I started to think that because Tim had studied the music, had really sort of looked at how does this music happen? It's about a bunch of people coming together and deciding about what idea they wanted to express, and then figuring out a way to collectively express it, which meant that you have to give space to have this dialogue, you had to have respect for the people you were playing with. And I think it kind of became a sort of foundation of his organizing practice.
There have always been musical explorers here in the city of Chicago. One of the humbling things about this entire exhibit, and one of the things that Timuel Black solidified in my consciousness, is that we are all part of this amazing continuum of people who feel genuinely, who want there to be freedom, things to be equitable, fairness, and joy.
There is a whole summer's worth of programming happening. We're activating all 3 spaces here in the Velvet Lounge. We're excited to especially bring younger people into this space. They represent the legacy of the music and of the individual musicians who have played in this space.
We invite you to check out Tangible Sound, Arrival to a Higher Ground at the Chicago Cultural Center. This exhibition is located at Michigan Avenue Galleries. The Chicago Cultural Center is free and open to the public every day of the week. This is an exhibition you do not want to miss.